Hello, and welcome to the Castle Talk podcast, where we talk to writers and creators of today's genre worlds from Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of the upcoming series Young Captain Nemo from Fievel and Friends Macmillan Books. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth Studios, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Tonight, Gene Pao of Shout Factory TV. He's been with Shout Factory TV since the launch of that service. And we wanted to bring him on because Tony and I are huge fans and consumers of Shout Factory TV. We just really wanted to talk to these guys. So this is going to be an opportunity to find out how an OTT service is plotted and planned, and what makes Shout Factory special. And I can't wait to get into it. Welcome, Gene.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, no, we're very excited to talk to you. So what we just wanted to do is just kind of pepper you with questions. So first of all, I think I should give you the opportunity to explain, for those who don't know, I mean, because to me, I use Shout Factory TV like every single day on my Roku device. But for those who don't know, how did you come to this service, and what exactly is it? I mean, how did Shout Factory TV come about? And I guess, how does it relate to Shout Factory, the company itself?
So Shout Factory over the years has, acquired the rights to a number of properties, some for physical distribution only, but a pretty substantial library was for all rights, including digital distribution. So when we took a look at all of the titles that we had, we felt like we had a pretty compelling service that we could launch under the Shout Factory brand to the consumer. And so about a little under 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, that's what we did, was we launched Shout Factory TV as an ad-supported service where people could watch a lot of their favorite shows and films free to the consumer.
One thing that has really struck me is that I knew Shout Factory as the purveyor of DVDs for all that time, but didn't you have to go, like, just because you've got a DVD, you have the right to press a DVD or like, I don't know, a concert film or something. That doesn't automatically mean you have the digital rights, right? Did you have to go out and chase after those as well?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, license holders, especially like the major movie studios or movie and TV studios, they're very good about carving their rights up in order to maximize the value of those rights. So sometimes they'll come to us and say that, hey, we would like for you to release the DVD, but we've got other ways of distributing on other platforms. But then there's others, especially independent rights holders and smaller studios that don't have the infrastructure to do their own sales across all the different platforms. They'll come to us and we will do an all rights deal. And with a lot of the classic content, they are owned either by an independent rights holder, an estate, or an individual studio or smaller studio.
I tend to think, and I know that Tony does as well, I think of Shout Factory as being like the place to find, and I hope you take this in the best spirit, like really cult stuff, like stuff that really appeals to a pop culture fanatic. Tony, you were explaining the other day that you work all the time on your freelance material and stuff for Rooster Teeth, and that you've got kind of various different kinds of niche-y stuff from Shout Factory playing in rotation.
Oh yeah, well, like we were talking, the Rangers shows, all the Rangers stuff that I enjoyed. I think it's great that it's on a service I can check out. That when, especially, the Power Rangers movie was coming out, or there's a revival, and there's all these people at work who watched maybe the original Power Rangers show, but didn't watch the Sentai. There was never been a good subtitled version of this stuff. It's all been kind of pirated. Working in media, much prefer a legit copy. If it's ad supported, if it's, if I have to buy DVDs, I'm constantly searching for that way that I can throw my money at legitimately releasing these things. And that. And I'm curious, as far as the rights go, how did you make the decision, and how did it affect the rights to you? You guys are one of the few services that offers the director's commentary, for example. All the stuff that you would normally get on a DVD or Blu-ray, people usually keep that close to the vest. What was the decision like to go, hey, we're going to also have the commentary. We're going to release all this stuff, and you can just play it at your leisure?
Right. Well, that's always been part of sort of Shout's secret sauce is, figuring out, what titles that we want to acquire. We're very selective. And it's not just the title itself. It's sort of like, well, where is it in its life cycle? What does the fan base look like? What are the, extra things that we can do to it that make it interesting to, today's fans? So that's why we put a lot of bonus materials, or we do an HD transfer or something like that. So that's been kind of the core of, Shout DNA on the physical side. And what we've done with Shout Factory TV is really try to apply those same concepts, but in the digital realm. So, some of the things that we do around our digital releases is kind of in that same vein. We'll create new material to go along with the titles that people have probably seen like over and over, but present it in a way that makes it more interesting for you to watch today. We'll do a lot of live streams and encourage people to chat. That's been a big win for us in terms of doing these live streams and having a community basically talk about about the title as it's like an online viewing party, getting together with a bunch of like-minded friends.
Oh, and those are great, by the way. Those are great. I've watched the Sentai ones, and I haven't met him in person, but I'm friends with August. We love the same monster stuff, and he's such a cool guy and such an advocate. And he's been on so many cool DVDs that anytime he's hosting, it's really fantastic. And I really like that you guys have done that. And again, I'll broadcast that at work. Like, there's a marathon going on because we're pretty late hours and some weekends and such like that, trying to get our shows out for Rooster Teeth. So it's been really cool that those are going on at various times. And yeah, it is really, and it does have that viewing party, hey, let's hang out with friends, only we're online kind of feel to it. So I think you've done a really good job with that. That's really, really cool.
I'd love to see that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gene.
No, we've just been trying to find different ways to make it more interactive, because there's just, especially with this type of content that people have already seen before, they like to be able to share that experience with others. And it's a lot different watching it by yourself at home versus watching it and being able to talk about it with other knowledgeable people. I think that's the other key thing too. It's these are all people who are very familiar with the program, and they just like to talk about it. And even beyond that, I mean, not everyone that's watching is talking. There's a lot of people that like to watch just for the conversation because they want to know more about the show, and they may not be interacting themselves.
I was just thinking about the fact that the thing that has surprised me the most, I mean, the two pieces that I admire the most about Shout Factory TV, you've got all the MST3K, well, not all, you have a huge selection of MST3K, but you've also got real, often very hard to find classic TV. I mean, my daughter loves watching Father Knows Best. We were just watching it this weekend. You got Route 66, because Route, just a historical accident, because Route 66 was in black and white, it kind of failed in syndication, even though it had some of those most beautiful, literally beautiful writing of the 1960s. So it's this sort of hidden gem, and it's been always difficult to sort of find it. And yet, on the Shout Factory TV app, there's so much opportunity for exploring things. Oh, I wanted to ask you about something else instead of just just showing this admiration. I want to know what kind of thought goes into choosing things for the VHS Vault, and what sort of art direction you guys are doing, because there's a whole treatment in a thing called the VHS Vault where you've taken films that and you've treated them up to look like VHS copies. They're usually either obscure cult films or kind of vaguely trashy films, but they've all been given that treatment. How creatively, how did that come about? And can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I can't really take credit for that. There's a guy that works over at Shout. His name is Nick, and he is just a fan of that genre of films. And he literally came up with that concept. And when we started exploring it and digging it out more, we just all fell in love with it. And this company has so many just sort of film geeks, and we just thought, wow, that would be hilarious. We know so many people that are out in the sort of the film community that would really appreciate this type of a packaging move for for exhibiting films in the digital space. And then one of our producers came up with the design treatment for the Shout Factory TV logo with the whole retro 80s look, and he just nailed it. And so, as a result of that, we did the first VHS Vault where we packaged, I think it was about 5 films with a documentary, Adjust Your Tracking, which talked about today's VHS culture, which is alive and thriving, but you wouldn't really know it unless you were part of that crowd. Then we did a second one where we packaged in a different film, which was it was set in an old time video store during the 80s or so, and we're just trying to find new ways to package it, but still keeping with that theme. So starting off in 2018, we're going to bring back a new installment of VHS Vault, but it's going to have a different twist than what you've seen in the past.
Interesting.
You heard it,
by the way.
You heard it first.
Awesome.
I can't wait. I mean, I'm serious. That the whole look of those things, where it really does look like each of these posters looks like a beat up copy, like VHS cover that somebody's flattened out and like stuck on a Xerox machine. Even though clearly it's fake because it has a big, weird 80s style Shout Factory VHS Vault logo. It's brilliant. I mean, the Adjust Your Tracking documentary is there. I see that. By the way, Class of '84, that is like one of the best exploitation pictures ever made about how the youth are out to are out to slaughter the good people of the suburbs. I highly recommend that. This whole thing is a real blast. Gosh,
yeah, it really hit me. Oh, sorry, Jason. It really hit me as well because we live in Austin. We have Alamo Drafthouse, and there's Video Vortex where they actually show VHS, and there's a lot of love for that. Some friends of mine did another documentary called Rewind This. Kind of came out around the same time as Adjust Your Tracking, and so there's a great love for that. And when I first saw these, I was blown away. The stickers look authentic, like everything about it, and the films were, I love Dreamscape. It was, that kind of stuff, like Q the Winged Serpent, Exterminators of the Year 3000. All of those are really cool, and it's just, the fact that you guys have done this and made it something to bring back. I'm stoked now that you told us there's a new, packaging of coming out, because I'll always check that out. I think, as far as Shout Factory TV goes, every month, right on the dot, I'm checking my app to see what updated. It's my monthly first of the month ritual to find out, is there anything new MST wise? Is there a new Ranger show, etc. So, and this VHS Vault really, it was back to, renting movies on the weekend, only now we get to experience that through a digital streaming device. That's amazing.
Is what Tony said true as far as how things refresh? I was curious about that. Does material fall off? I would presume as a license runs out, something might come off. But how often are things being added?
Well, we add new content on a monthly basis because we deliver to a bunch of different platforms. Makes it difficult for us to try and deliver on a more frequent schedule, but hopefully that will change going forward. And content does occasionally fall off due to rights expirations. Very early on, we had explored the concept of making things available for a limited period of time, one or 3 months, so that, hey, you better watch it or else it's going to go away. But what we've kind of found is that doesn't really work. People want to watch on their own schedule. So if we keep something up there for, say, 2 years, the amount of viewership that we get in month 1 is pretty consistent with the amount of viewership that we'll get through month 2 and 22 through 24. So it's something that you wouldn't have expected in this world, but it kind of helps out. So we didn't see a reason to really take things down when something goes up.
No, of course.
That's cool.
I can't, why bother taking it? In fact, that's one of the things that always annoyed me about certain services that I won't name here, but where artificially and for no particular reason they pull certain things out of circulation, and I'm like, why? Why bother? And I get the idea. The idea is so that you'll keep your subscription longer, I suppose. But it's absurd. It's silly because there's the scarcity is completely artificial. What makes you? I had two thoughts. First was, how do you choose what's, like, what are you scanning for out there as you add things? And I also wanted to ask you, what has surprised you about how, what material does better, what does worse? In any business, you're going to be looking at the success of different parts of your product, and you're going to adjust the the roadmap accordingly. But I'm curious what else you've been surprised by. But first, what are you scanning for when you're looking to add new things to Shout Factory?
Well, really, what we scan for is we look for titles that sort of have a following that is still relevant today. There's a lot of shows out there and a lot of films that were popular during its day, but now people could care less. And then there are some titles where maybe it wasn't a huge hit back then, but over time it's built an audience. And so, like, home movies is probably a good example of that one, where it wasn't a breakout hit when it came out, not like The Simpsons, but now there's so many hardcore, passionate fans of that show. They're just they just want to get more. And in fact, a few months ago, we ran a marathon on Twitch for the show Starcade, and in between the episodes, we decided, well, why not put some clips from home movies, because we just thought the audience would resonate. And every time one of those clips came on, we got so many comments about people saying, oh, how much they love home movies. And I can remember at least 2 or 3 comments saying, like, oh, Shout should do a home movies marathon. So one of those is in the works, too. And you heard it from me first here.
That's wonderful. That is
awesome.
And it is so funny. That is a brilliant show. I was sad to see it go. I discovered Stingray recently on Shout Factory. Holy God!
Yeah.
You know what this thing is? It's. I mean, I'm sure you know, but for the audience that might not know, it is a futuristic story about these guys who drive a super sub and save the world from underwater alien attacks. It is mind-blowingly. It is goofy and big and awesome. I was using it to be inspired for the Young Captain Nemo books that I'm writing. It is amazing.
Well, if you like Stingray, you should really check out Thunderbirds, which is part of the whole Jerry Anderson collection and the marionette puppets. Because what we did with Thunderbirds was we did all new HD transfers, and it actually looks phenomenal.
Those do look great.
Yeah.
How did you go about, like, how did that come about? You've got so much Jerry Anderson stuff. I was surprised because I have a few friends from the UK. They're super into it. And a lot of it was shown over here, but there's a lot of love and passion put into these transfers and into how they're presented. How did you kind of come about going, we're going to go for this?
Well, that was one of those titles that we had acquired all rights to. So we had done a DVD release for all of those titles. And the one with Thunderbirds, we had done an HD transfer because that's the most popular of the series. We did the HD transfer and put those out on Blu-ray. And so, so we kind of do a windowing strategy too. We put them out on Blu-ray, and then once it's kind of run its course, then we put it up on Shout Factory TV to give it sort of a second life and a new audience, because there's a lot of people who just aren't passionate enough to buy the DVD but still want to enjoy the show.
Right. Have you ever thought about doing the Thunderbirds anime to kind of follow up, or is it too hard to get the rights? Or
we had thought about it. In fact, those are available to us if we want it. At the moment, we felt like that sort of hits a different demo because it is more animated. Since it is animated, it tends to skew a little bit younger. So we're not quite sure how much traction that series has versus some of the other older Jerry Anderson titles.
Right. I mean, I love old school stuff. I I bought the Guy King DVDs because I love supporting that. I watched Vanguard Ace when it was Force 5 and they just showed 5 different shows. It was kind of
Sure.
Guy King, Vanguard Ace, Star Zinger were all part of a kind of rotating anthology collection. So I was super stoked that I could actually watch Vanguard Ace whenever I kind of wanted to pull up my Roku. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
So I think, between you and I think it's Discotech does a lot of old school stuff. To me, the Thunderbirds anime does, when I look at it, it's more of an old school, X amount of people like it. I think it was only previously on VHS. I don't know if it ever got any kind of DVD release between that. So, and that, me and a few people I know who are really into that, my director at work would be into that. So I'm not, for me, it doesn't skew as young, but you guys do the market research, so I'm going to trust you. But I thought that was really cool. That's interesting that it's available though. If you ever chose to do that, that's really rad.
Gene, what has surprised you? Because it seems to me there's so much just sort of accident and testing. So what you mentioned one thing that surprised you, which is that something that's popular is going to stay popular from the beginning to end. But out of the things that you've launched, what's sort of stuck out as a learning that you would put onto like a speech that you didn't anticipate when you started out?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning that we've had is that a title, just because a title does well on one platform, doesn't necessarily mean it will do well on all the platforms. And the one exception to that rule that we found is with Mystery Science Theater. Regardless of where we put it, we're going to have a pretty decent viewership. But there are some titles, like Fathers Knows Best, will perform really well on some of our outlets, but then not so well on others. And then, home movies would perform well in another area that Fathers Knows Best does not perform as well in. So
when you say outlets, do you mean DVDs versus Roku, or do you mean like Roku versus smart TVs? I mean, like what do you mean by outlets in that instance?
I think it's everything. You look at DVDs, you look at where it's performing on Roku, or whether it's on the website, or whether we've got a Shout Factory TV channel on Hulu, so the titles there that perform well are different than the titles that would perform on our website. So
I hadn't even thought about
hard
the fact
to predict.
that you've got it in Hulu. So if somebody's a subscriber to Hulu, they bring up the Hulu app on the Roku, and then you've got a shelf essentially of Shout Factory stuff. Is it a subset, or is the whole library there?
It's a subset. Yeah, the Hulu offering is a little bit different. In fact, that's why we don't really call ourselves an OTT service. We're a digital streaming service or digital streaming brand. So we're across a bunch of different platforms. So we have a channel on Twitch. We have a channel on Pluto TV. Those are live streaming channels. We have a tray on Popcorn Flicks, and then but our entire library is available at shoutfactorytv.com, through the Shout Factory TV Roku app and the Amazon Fire app, and also on our Amazon Prime channel. So it's a kind of mixture. I kind of think of it like MTV. Like MTV got your channel, but when you go internationally, they have they have blocks, programming blocks. And the MTV in Latin America is going to have different programming than the MTV in the U.S., but a lot of it will also be the same.
Right. Absolutely. I loved what you said about finding surprises that some of the products are doing better, for instance, maybe out of Hulu than they are, on a Roku device. That is truly fascinating. And it would be fun to watch those different trend lines change from month to month. Gosh, the last thing that I wanted to ask, and if you can't reveal this, it's okay. But I was really curious. Where are most of your viewers coming from? Are most of them coming from like the Roku and the streaming devices, or are most of them on on the PC or Hulu, or can you say?
Well, it's hard to say because it comes from lots of different areas depending upon the title, depending upon what we're doing with the title. So if we're doing a programming stunt, it's like not all things are created equal. It's almost like having a product at various stores, and we see this in our physical business. Like, Walmart, certain titles will sell there. At Target, other titles will sell there. And at Amazon, got other things that sell there. So just because it sells well in one place doesn't necessarily mean it'll sell well in other places. So far, the exception to the rule has been Mystery Science Theater because it seems like that it does well pretty much everywhere. There's a lot of loyal, passionate fans, and they just want to watch it in as many different places as they can.
Yeah, I will say, as they started to drop off other services, I'm pretty sure that's why I came across Shout Factory originally, was it started to drop off. I was like, oh, wait, here's where they're located now. Let me watch all of this. And the selection has been really fantastic. But I think you're totally true. Everybody who loves the show is gonna watch it as much as possible. I was curious, actually. So you also have originals. How did that kind of come about? When was the decision to launch original programming? And what are some of your favorites there? And how did that come about? And what do you dig on that? What should people check out, do you think?
Yeah. So with our original programming, it sort of comes out of our DVD heritage as well. So we create, for our DVDs, a lot of bonus material. But your DVD sales traditionally go to your hardcore fans, and so there's a lot of people that might be interested in these programs, but maybe not interested enough to go out and buy like a $50 DVD box set. So some of our original programming is just a repurposing of that bonus material. But also when we shoot bonus material, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it to the DVD, so we try and mine that stuff as well. The other form of original programming that we have is kind of like, I'd probably call it more like compilations or essentially, kind of hard to put a name on it.
Well, you'd call those documentaries. They're basically documentaries, if it's a clip show.
Yeah, it's kind of like a compilation show. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we entered into a relationship with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. They're the ones that put on the Jerry Lewis Labor Day telethons for about 5 decades. And we didn't think that people would necessarily be interested in watching the entire telethons. All almost 1,000 hours of it. So what we did was we took the best ofs and themed them into different categories. So like one was around magicians, the other is around comedians, and another one's around Broadway performances, and created episodes out of that. So that one, although it relies on historical footage, I mean, it is a new program because it's never been packaged in that way before. I would say we do have a few truly original programs, such as Power Morphicon Live, which is a live stream from the Power Rangers Power Morphicon convention in Pasadena. So that everything there was produced by us. But we also created a pilot episode for a show called Horror Hunters, which is about these two guys who are horror sort of fanatics. They're sort of well known in the horror community, and they go out and visit horror collectors and check out their collection. And we did a pilot episode of that, which did fairly well. We're just trying to figure out what's the best configuration for that program moving forward.
That's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I also really like the Why We Love It. I noticed, scrolling back through it, just how many of these that we love as well that we've covered on the podcast. Yeah. So it's pretty great. I think we're definitely in sync as far as interests. So.
I know it's kind of funny. We have a thing at the end of the show because we've been doing the show is of all like science fiction and comic writers, and we just talk about horror movies. But at the end, we always promote stuff that we're enjoying, and I can't tell you how many times we've mentioned either the Shout Factory app or just something random that we came across on the Shout Factory app. But I have to say, I did not get a chance to mention this but I was looking at your Dick Cavett material, which sounds so random, but I came across this interview with Paul Simon, and in the middle of the interview on Dick Cavett, Cavett asks, "Hey, what are you working on?" And he says, "Oh, well, I'm trying to figure out this song," and he starts half playing Still Crazy after all these years, but he hasn't yet, half the song's not there. He actually just stops in the middle and he goes, "Well, that's as much as I've figured out so far." It is the most amazing thing,
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, this is just captured like a moment. It's truly this amazing archival footage. It's weird that that piece of cultural platinum is there right alongside, the cheesy David Hasselhoff witchcraft movie that 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 also is there. I mean, it's really a pretty cool collection. Well, gosh, all right. So Mr. Powell, I want to thank you. The Shout Factory app, as you mentioned, can be found. Well, the app itself. You can find it on Roku and some other streaming devices, but the Shout Factory brand is essentially everywhere. If people are looking for it, they can look for the app, and I really recommend that they do. But they can also look for the material on Hulu or on DVD or what have you. I appreciate you coming on and letting us just sort of gush fandom at you, and I appreciate you taking our questions this evening.
Well, Jason and Tony, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh yeah, and is there anything that you would like to talk about or say, hey, watch out for this or that? We would love to hear if you have anything, closing thoughts on what people should be looking for or anything like that. We definitely would like to spread the word more. So.
Well, I gave you 2 teasers already, and there's
Yes.
more things about in 2018.
Cool. More VHS Vault. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, and we really appreciate that. That's amazing. I mean, I'm stoked as well, but that's really awesome. And find it. I think it's great that you're also there's a channel you can subscribe to on Amazon Prime. All of that's really fantastic. So thanks for giving us so many outlets to watch. Weird, crazy, awesome stuff that you may not get from anywhere else.
That's what we try to do, is to serve the fans. That's our mantra.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'll make sure that you find out when this goes up so you can listen to it, and we're so thankful, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again sometime.
All right, great. Thanks so much. Have a great evening.
You
Thanks,
too.
guys. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye.